This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hello, Bad Movie lovers, and welcome back to Bad Movies We Love. I am your host, Nick Scheist.
The master of this stupid stuff!
There has been some rearranging of episodes, but Cage Against the Machine rolls on as we continue our celebration of Nick Cage movies. The quote-unquote bad ones, at least. This is going to be the last of those so-called bad movies, as we have already done Deadfall from 1993, Drive Angry from 2011, and just recently Prisoners of the Ghostland from 2021. It is certainly not the end of Cage, as his library full of movies that some would say are bad is bountiful, and I am sure we will find our way back to him once again. I've also got a bonus episode on Cage's lone directorial effort in Sunny that needs to be recorded, and I've got another one up my sleeve that I'm going to play a little bit close to the chest, because who doesn't like a good surprise? But in the here and now, I was joined by Ben Vargas to talk about Paul Schrader's gritty crime drama from 2016. It's Dog Eat Dog.
Your average moviegoer, this is not going to be appealing to. It's just too strange, too weird.
So even in the most mainstream thing he does, he's still weird.
He walks away and he's like, rah, he does some weird Cage move, and you're just like, okay, there's his Cage. That's his Cage part.
Yeah, there is a very dark sense of humor, I think, that permeates the entire film and makes it work for me in a way that I think if you do not have tolerance for that, probably will be off-putting to you.
Yeah, I think without the dark comedy giving levity, this would be a pretty hard movie to watch.
I just feel like I hung out with the wrong fucking dudes for the day, you know?
Well, it's Cleveland, so I'd probably do something greasy.
Oh, things are gonna probably go okay, and then no, we're all morons.
We need to get us some real work, gents. We need a big job, a grown-up job. All right.
You know what I fucking love? Check it out. You cats not freaking out about this? I've been out longer than you guys, and I'm still freaking out about it.
What? What is it?
Carpeting. Yeah, you know how much bare feet. If you had that privilege in your cell and they didn't notice you wasn't wearing your shower flip-flops in your downtime.
Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing well, thank you for asking.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is an overcast, chilly day in Southern California.
Same here. We actually had hail and snow flurries yesterday on April 20th.
Wow. That
Wild.
is, not something that I'm going to deal with, but, I got to put myself in that situation.
Yeah. I lived in Southern Cali, so I know what it's like.
Yeah, and speaking of putting ourselves in situations, we did that with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely an odd situation type of movie. Why don't you tell the listeners what it is that we're talking about?
We're talking about Dog Eat Dog by Paul Schrader, one of my favorite directors, written by Matthew Wilder. And it is about three criminals who get out of prison, and kind of like a, similar trope of let's do a couple big jobs and we'll be okay. But, this is Schrader and it's Cage and it's Dafoe, so it's weird and definitely not by the book. And There's a lot of weird scenes in it, so it's yeah, it's it's what you would expect if you're fans of the above mentioned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also sort of a very specific, like, crime genre film. Like you said, the criminal who needs to theoretically do one last big job and finally be done with crime forever and be set. And both the allure of being able to do that and
Mhm.
also the trappings that come with it. But I
Mhm.
feel like in a lot of those other movies, the criminals at least start from a place of competency where the idea that they might be able to pull this off is realistic.
Mhm.
Where in this movie, I think you strip all of that away, and Nick Cage, who's kind of the ringleader, is also kind of like not the brightest. Like he's the one who wears a suit and he's got the connections, but yeah, he's not exactly a mastermind, and
Mhm.
he has surrounded himself with people that are also not bright and incredibly volatile in the case of Dafoe's character. So you're kind of just waiting to see what's going to go wrong because this movie starts right out of the box with Willem Dafoe doing a bunch of coke at his, I guess, former girlfriend's house without her
Yeah.
knowledge, ends up murdering her violently, and her daughter, I believe, goes upstairs, chases
Yeah.
her down, stabs her too. Um,
No, he
so
shot her in the head.
he shot her. That's right.
He put the pillow over her head and shot her.
That's right. So right out of the gates, like we know that Willem Dafoe is a shitty human being,
Oh
and
yeah.
so when we get the other criminals introduced into the picture, whether it's Christopher Matthew Cook or Nick Cage's character, they sort of seem like the lesser of the evils within the
Mhm.
context of the trio that we have. And it is weird because Defoe is such a compelling actor and such a good performer to watch that him being crazy kind of is par for the course, and getting him together with Nicolas Cage is a really fun formula for them to be crazy. And actually, when I had talked to your brother and we were talking about Deadfall, I said that had the Michael Bean character been played by like a Willem Dafoe, we could have had like a very interesting character dynamic because of the world in which that all takes place. So to see that Defoe and Cage got to sort of cut loose and be maniacs in this case was a lot of fun. And
Mm.
you mentioned that you saw it when it came out back in 2016. And was this something that you were drawn to because it was Cage or because of the genre or some combination?
I mean, Cage, Defoe, Paul Schrader, like that's an easy combo that I will watch any day of the year. I mean,
Fair.
I'm a big Paul Schrader fan. I obviously love Nick Cage. I think I'm up to like 84 or 85 Nick Cage movie scenes, so I'm getting close to finishing his whole filmography, but
You only got like 40 or
um
50 to go.
yeah, he keeps adding. At one point I was down to like I think it was less than 20 and now it just keeps going up, so it'll be a lifelong thing until he stops acting probably.
Yeah. I mean, on a good year, he'll give you like 3 or 4. And then on
Mhm.
an off year, it's like, okay, he only made 1 or 2 movies this year. So it
Yeah.
is tough to keep up with. Um,
Yeah.
we had talked about this movie briefly when I initially started scouting last year for
Mhm.
Nick Cage month, which was November. And then there were so many people that wanted to jump on the show
Mhm.
that I ended up having to, reschedule things and make a whole second month based on Nick Cage movies. And so that's how we ended up here. And this is a movie that I saw on cable, but I'd never seen it from the beginning. So it was something that would be on, and I'm like, oh, I like all of these components. Let me watch it. And so I would watch a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I got to stop because I don't want to finish the movie having not seen the beginning. And that happened a couple of times. So then when I finally sat down to watch it in its entirety here, I found myself asking, like, really, this is considered to be a bad movie? Like, I get that it is sort of hostile and violent and weird and all of the things that I kind of would expect, but for it to be bad, I think would take more than what I've seen out of this. And especially going back and watching another like crime drama that is weird in Deadfall. Granted, it's not apples to apples, but that is a story of sort of con men pulling off a job, a big score, so that they can be set there. You have a bunch of eccentric characters, criminals all around, like the peripheral of that story. Here you have it as well, but I feel like maybe it is a thing of the point in the careers for all of these people at which this gets made. Like, that Schrader's not making his first movie as Chris Coppola was when he's doing Deadfall. Cage is well past the point in his career where he's been through it all. Dafoe too, like they're probably in their 50s making this movie versus this is like something they're experimenting with in their 20s. So I think sort of the competency of the major players involved in this really go a long way in making the movie work. But yeah, I didn't feel like it was bad, even though it is, I think, off-putting to probably a decent percentage of people.
Yeah, I think that most not how do you say it? Your average moviegoer, this is not going to be appealing to. It's just too strange, too weird. A lot of people don't really give Cage. I think the average movie person, when you mention Nick Cage, they're like, "Oh yeah, the goofy, weird guy who like blows up in movies." Like they don't look at him as like a great actor, which I think he is. I think he's one of the most maligned actors in history. He really takes every role seriously, no matter how bad the movie is. He's a film buff himself. And so, like, where he comes from when he's doing these roles, I think is above the average person's knowledge, and so and him and Defoe, like up until Defoe started doing some more mainstream stuff like Spider-Man and stuff, he's never had a normal career.
Yeah.
He's always done very weird stuff. He's always done a lot of independent stuff. I mean, he did Antichrist, which was, crazy, and he's done a whole bunch of stuff. And I mean, Cage and Defoe both worked on Wild at Heart, and they were both maniacs in that movie. So like, their familiarity, that was another reason why I was looking forward to this movie, because Wild at Heart's my favorite David Lynch. So I really was looking forward to seeing them, work together again. And Schrader and Dafoe have worked together a ton of times. I think at this point, it's like 6 or 7 times that they had worked together. So, there's a lot of for me, a lot of reasons to watch this and like it. But yeah, for the average person, I mean, the scene where he's standing in the mirror and his face is changing, and there's weird stuff in this, and I don't think that that's what the typical moviegoer is looking to see when they're going to see a movie. So
that is fair. And it's also a movie where I think because of how it starts, like, it's the kind of movie that if I were seeing this sort of in my old Lemley theater back in North Hollywood, there's people that like they'll walk out of a movie if it hits certain notes within a certain time frame. And I think this movie hits those kind of right away. But because you bring up Dafoe and Cage working together, I'm surprised they haven't worked together more, because like cinematically they're very much like kindred spirits in that way. Like, they match each other's freak. to borrow a phrase from the newer generations. And it's the kind of stuff that I'm just frankly surprised, because they're in similar circles. They've worked with a lot of the same filmmakers and a lot of the same sort of creative teams overlapping, but never really lining up to be in the same movie all that often. I mean, granted, Wild at Heart is 1993 and this is 2016. So, I mean, I would like them to work together selfishly, more than once every 20 years, because I feel like they are two performers who they're willing to take chances. They're willing to, I think, imbue the characters that they inhabit with like this level of hyper realism. I mean, like you mentioned Spider-Man, right? But I think even in that movie, a lot of what makes Dafoe's portrayal so memorable is that it is like hyper realistic in a lot of ways. And so even in the most like mainstream thing he does, he's still weird. And
for sure. Yeah.
You know, I think Cage is maybe more of a chameleon in the sense that like he can have done The Rock and stuff like that and be the leading man, even though he doesn't like he doesn't have a ton of that under his belt. He left that to do more weird shit. And I mean, I think we're all the better off for it. But I want to look back at a couple additional details here in the film file. You had mentioned initially, of course, that this is a Paul Schrader film with the screenplay by Matthew David Wilder. It was based on the novel by Edward Bunker, famous criminal, starring, of course, Nick Cage. That's why we're talking about it. Willem Dafoe and Christopher Matthew Cook. Cinematography by Alexander Diamond. Editor Benjamin Rodriguez Jr. Production design by Grace Yun. Costume design by Olga Mill. And composed by Nikki Casper and D'Antoni Parks. Not a lot of names I recognize on the back end in terms of sort of the supporting production elements, but I actually liked the production design of this movie quite a lot for a sort of like noirish crime thriller. It's fairly colorful when it wants to be. I think especially in the beginning and the end, you have these like sort of bookends of these big sort of colorful, violent scenes. And a lot of the middle of that is kind of like this gray, real world crime land that they exist in. The costuming is really fun, though. Cage's suit is insane. He goes with that like mint green, fresh out of jail, goes straight to the strip club.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about voiceover. I know a lot of people have issues with voiceover being a narrative shortcut or a crutch. And like, I understand that position if you don't like it. But thinking now of all the Nick Cage movies that actually he does voiceover in, like, does anybody do voiceover for a film better than Nick Cage?
No. I am typically not a big fan of narration or voiceover, and it started off, and I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. But it's Cage just does such a good job of it. I mean, Cage should have done way more voice acting than he's done. And I know he's done a decent amount. He's done a lot of animation, but like he just has such a perfect voice for it. And I think that it works in this because there's a lot of backstory that we don't have time to really go through. And so like, and I'm also not a big fan of like exposition, but I think in this scenario it works. I think that for time purposes, budget purposes, you just don't have the time to really get into, the three characters. But yeah, I agree. I think Cage is perfect at it, and there's very few movies where I feel like it's done well. I mean, Stand By Me is probably one of my favorites for voiceover, and but yeah, it's he's great at it. So
I feel like in a movie like this, it's fitting, mostly because you're having to, like you said, do a lot of shortcuts for introducing backstory. And I don't know if it's maybe just a crime thing. I know we get a lot of it, like in The Departed as well. We get a lot of it from Leo. And so I think when you're sort of having a compelling character having to navigate like a complicated world with a lot of detail that, each one of those small details could sort of be its own standalone story, you almost want your narrator to have some like effect on how you view the world around them. And so I think in a case like this, you're relying very heavily on Nick Cage's existence at this time in his career as a very sort of steadfast presence in film. Um, Even though like there's some crazy stuff that does happen here, like he's fairly, I don't know, I'm going to say normal by comparison. Granted, he does sort of do like a Humphrey Bogart impersonation that he's like breaking into and like just lives in that moment. So like he does get weird, but I think as the audience, like you go into it, like you're familiar with Cage. And granted, he's not a reliable narrator, but he is the anchor point for us as the audience to like begin to experience this world. And he also has to like absorb the responsibility of the acts that we've seen of Willem Dafoe's character in a sort of like trust me kind of way. And we see that communicated when he's sitting down at the table with the boss and the guy he's supposed to do the job for, like, oh, these guys are kind of fools. They don't need to, be involved in this part of the negotiation. They only sort of know what they need to know. And so there's like a false air of confidence and bravado placed in that. And I think it's a good way to go about kind of undermining what we end up seeing in the case of like the events of the film here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good explanation.
Well, let's look at the tail of the tape then, because as I said, I am not solely convinced that this is a bad movie. However, it has an IMDb of 4.8, a Metascore of 53, a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 51, Rotten Tomatoes audience score of 19%.
Oof.
Yeah, brutal. Letterbox of 2.8, fair enough, and Google thumbs up rating of 58%, giving us a bad movies we love total of 47 out of 100.
Okay.
So not like the end of the world or anything, but definitely on, I think, a lower plane than I would have expected in a vacuum. Like, had I not known beforehand that the score was low because I had to sort of like green light it before I jumped into the discussion, I would have walked out of it being like, okay, this is not a bad movie. And maybe my tolerance is just higher than
Yeah.
some other people. But, it's kind of a throwback to 70s era, like gritty crime dramas where like these people aren't necessarily supposed to be good. And given that, Edward Bunker, I think the novel was either from like the early 80s. I might be wrong about that, but Schrader is in his 60s, Dafoe, Cage, both in their mid to late 50s at the time of making this film. So they're all guys that came up like from that era, and they're all people that very much understand that era of filmmaking. Obviously, Taxi Driver under Schrader's belt, like he understands the sort of like anti-hero protagonist, like villainous protagonist in that way. And so I don't think you could maybe necessarily find a better person to be at the helm of this. But, I don't know if there is the same level of tolerance for these kinds of characters anymore. I think, modern discourse is like, oh, this person behaved badly or in an amoral way on screen and therefore is not a compelling character or not a like quote unquote like good character to watch. And so like that has become more of a divide, I think, amongst modern audiences than it probably used to be, and may have impacted how this movie was received.
Yeah, I think that like I said earlier, like I think anything that kind of goes against the grain, people are just they're not as open to it as a typical, you know, and a typical crime drama or crime story. So Schrader obviously goes dark in most of his movies, so this is not I don't think Schrader is really for everybody, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a good
I'm
point.
I'm not sure he's actually made a normal, like, happy type of film. That's just not the type of director he is.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And there's still plenty of appetite in the world right now for crime thrillers. I mean, we get them all the time. You know, they just had The Accountant 2, there's Crime 101 that was just out like a month or two ago. It is a very consistently steady um genre. I think at the beginning of the year too was Dead Man's Wire with Bill Skarsgård.
Mm.
No shortage of movies like this, but you kind of get caught between like, is the criminal person acting justly
Mhm.
in the pursuit of their goal? Like, are they robbing a bank like a Robin Hood type of character? Are they doing this like from a place of greed, like you see in a Den of Thieves, right? Where,
Mhm.
you have sort of like charismatic, fun people to watch on screen that seem to like be fun when they're not committing crime. And so it's kind of like not a victimless crime because obviously they're robbing somebody, but
Right.
there seems to be like a moral high ground that a lot of modern crime thrillers sort of like pitch their tent on. And in this movie, like you remove all the moral high ground right away, and you're like working from a deficit, like just to get back to zero in this movie. And it's labeled as an action crime thriller, but I couldn't help but think that it's kind of like a dark comedy as well. Like Nick Cage is doing a Humphrey Bogart impersonation in this film at one point. Like Willem Dafoe makes a joke about like putting he says like, what is that thing that you put in a baby's mouth? And he just
Oh
goes,
yeah.
a dick? And
Yeah.
it's disgusting, but
Right.
it was the joke that worked the best when they were filming the scene, Schrader said, and so he left it in there. And so you get like Defoe's playing the character straight, but he's so insane that a lot of his behavior is just sort of like, I found him to be funny, even though like he's not necessarily like a cut and dry comedic character.
Mhm.
And really it's the third guy, Cook, who plays Diesel, who's like the most, I guess, like straight laced and objectively normal, like the person that it would
Yeah.
exist, I guess, like maybe most in conventional crime dramas and thrillers.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you get him, and he's like the least known actor of the bunch, but I think the dynamic between the three of them is very interesting, and we see it play out in a lot of different ways, including I think they all have like a drug fueled, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't it's like sex fest kind of like. Defoe gets, the massage therapist to do a little rub and tug action for him. Like Cage has paid a prostitute or a sex worker to uh like sleep with him, but also he's like trying to romance her and be like, let's like go away with me. Like, do you want to be my girlfriend? You want to like travel with me and do all this stuff?
He
So it's
keeps
like,
asking her to go to he keeps asking her to go to Nice, and she's like, "Where's that?" And he's like, "In France." He's like getting annoyed with her.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, none of it's sexy. And like then the other guy, he's just like, he's kind of. She keeps asking him like, "Oh, well, what music do you like?" And he's like, "I don't like music." And he's like, "I was in prison and like I don't know anything." And like so like none of the the sex scenes that you would typically get were like very straightforward, or like they were all very bizarre and no actual sex really. So but I think I think the reason why people wouldn't like this is just it's not straightforward. It's not polished. It's very dark and gritty. And also, there's no good guy. Like,
Yeah.
people like good guy. They like good guy, bad guy. Like the good cop, or the person trying to track these people down. And there's none of that in this movie. It's all bad guys. So there's, like you said, it starts off so dark. I mean, him like stabbing her just comes out of nowhere. Like, he's stabbing her and then he shoots the little kid. And I mean, that's like pretty taboo. You don't really kill kids in movies. And so, like, I think that it starts off so. I could see people leaving after that first scene.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like at some of the film festivals where you're like, oh, I ain't got time for this.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that people don't like this, because I think that unless you're familiar with the actors, the director, and the places that they typically go, if you went into this kind of blind, I think it would be kind of shocking for the average moviegoer.
Yeah, because I feel like on its sort of like its filmmaking and like artistic merits, it's well made and it's solid in those areas, and I appreciate what it is attempting to do with these characters, and also the entire time just being like, all these guys suck, and I don't know if they're going to get away with this, but it doesn't seem like there's a happy ending in sight based on sort of the trajectory here. And it escalates, of course, quickly when you have a character like Dafoe, who is constantly on drugs and very quick to anger, and is not really like, if he's your attack dog, he's sort of off leash all the time, and he's always one altercation away from blowing a guy's head off with a shotgun. So, it is. It's not like the most violent movie I've ever seen. It's not the weirdest movie I've ever seen. It's not probably like the worst characters I've ever seen put to film. But there does seem to be a kind of, I want to say, like, maliciousness seems strong, but there's definitely like a sort of mean-spirited nature to the film. And I think if it were to maybe lean into some of the stuff that is comedy centric, and it's like a black comedy with the same narrative, it softens some of those like meaner edges. But in listening to some of the red carpet interviews and hearing Schrader talk about it, he's like, oh, it's nasty. Like, it's a mean, nasty film, and like that's exactly what we're trying to do. So wasn't really trying to pull his punches with telling this. And Edward Bunker lived these kinds of stories and wrote about them, and so that's how we end up with this kind of insane, like, it's almost like so crazy it's hard to believe, but also then reaches like that apex point where it's like, well, truth is often stranger than fiction, and that might be this kind of inflection point where like you kind of wouldn't believe that any of this stuff happens, but then it's like, well, maybe not all criminals are just brilliant masterminds. They're not all like the Ocean's 11 suave
Most
George
aren't.
Clooney type. Yeah, exactly. These guys have all been in jail for a reason, because they've been caught before.
Right.
So
exactly.
yeah, they haven't evaded capture to this point. And I do appreciate like the willingness to sort of make kind of bumbling idiots that are bound to fail in the end the centerpiece of your film, because I think on the one hand you have the notion of like, if the characters all met the same fate, but they were characters we were cheering for, it's like this, I don't know, this kind of like Greek tragedy of like, oh, these guys were maybe wrongfully imprisoned, or they took the fall for somebody that they shouldn't have, and they were more morally righteous characters than the ones that we get, and then they all meet the ends that they do. It'd be like, oh, this is like a very tragic kind of story. but because they're all shitty, it's this weird sort of like Ouroboros of a story of like the snake eating its own tail. Like the closer that they get to achieving the thing that they want, the more that they've eaten themselves at that point and sort of are left with nothing left to consume except for what's right in front of them, and that's them. And so we get to that sort of inevitable end with them, and it is like very ethereal. Like we just saw Cage in the back seat, like doing the whole weird impersonation thing. Like I don't know if he's trying to like not be recognized or if he's like in a weird sort of like stress induced psychosis. But yeah, he gets into like the shootout with the cops and there's like pink mist everywhere and he kills a couple cops and then like he just gets the shit beaten out of him and dragged behind the cop car. It's all very odd and I'm like torn between like this is insane. He kind of like deserves what he's getting, but also like it is a shit way to go out. So
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy movie to like walk away from because I don't know at the end of it like how am I actually supposed to feel, right? I don't feel like some heroic triumph. I don't feel like an overt level of like sadness or tragedy for these characters. I just feel like I hung out with the wrong fucking dudes for the day, you know?
Yeah, it's well, and I think that you know, most of Schrader's movies is you're watching somebody unravel
Yeah.
spiritually or you know, on their you know, dying on their own sword kind of thing. Like, you know, their life has led up to this bad ending because they're bad people and, you know, there's no good ending for bad people. I think Schrader, that's like a pretty common thing that he likes to talk about and discuss. So, to me, it's, you know, it's just is like a lesson in what not to do in life kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, don't
Yes.
follow these people's examples.
Yes, be careful of the company you keep as well. Let me take a moment. There's not a lot of production notes, but let me just pause here quickly to set the table. The principal photography for this film began October 19th, 2015 in Cleveland, Ohio, and also took place in Sheffield Lake, closing production on November 23rd of 2015. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, only about a month. The film then had its premiere as the closing entry for the Director's Fortnight section at Cannes in 2016 and released on November 4th of 2016 to a wide audience. This movie did not, at least from the numbers that I can see in front of me, grossed $184,000 worldwide. So probably, I don't even see a budget attached to this. So like, no, we can't disclose that number because you'll know how much we lost our ass on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a successful film. Not entirely surprising. I think distribution is probably hard for something like this, but you know, when you think of it as like a project that these creatives wanted to do together for the sake of doing it, it's probably never a movie that was intended to make money in the long run anyway. This was always something that like was done for the sake of doing it. And in what Schrader said, I pulled a little bit of that quote earlier, but he said, "I've been involved over the years in some prestigious and important films. This is not one of them. Good, nasty fun," he said. "It was unlike anything he's done before, and it was just fun and playful." And speaking of Eddie Bunker, he said the movie is a departure from the material because it was written in the 90s, but they were making a film for the 2010s. So he viewed Final Cut, which he had over this film, as his ultimate weapon. So he got to really make the movie that he wanted to make here without much studio interference, without really an editor, like, you know, superseding him. So at the end of the day, this is Schrader's project through and through. And he went on to do, First Reformed, I think was not that long. That was the one right after this in 2017. So you go from this to then you take a guy who is like definitely struggling as well and going to some extremes, but starting from a place of what I think we as the audience should assume is some sort of like at least spiritual groundedness and not necessarily like moralistic high ground, but yeah, this is a character who's a priest who's become like disillusioned with the world and is spiraling into madness. So it's a different kind of story, but it's interesting to see that he jumped from this directly into that. And, and then he does Card Counter and Master Gardener back to back, which examine sort of similar, I guess, thematic issues between the two. And Master Gardener was good. I got to go back and watch Card Counter. I think that was like
I really enjoyed it.
Was it a straight to video release during the pandemic?
I don't think so. I thought
2021.
I'm pretty sure it was in the theaters.
It may have been. Now that I've done some of these, I'm like, oh yeah, this was a 2021 movie, COVID era. I know that I like gutted it out with a face mask to go to the theaters, much against my wife's advice. But sometimes we got to go to the movies. Okay, so did you take the time to write a synopsis haiku for this?
I did.
Sweet. Okay,
hopefully I remember it.
Did you write it down is the question.
I didn't, but I memorized it, so we're gonna go.
All right.
We're gonna go based on that.
All right, well, you go first then, so your memory don't fail you.
All right, so it's Cage, Dafoe, oh boy, Mad Dog is the wild card. Cage, Bogart, the end.
Well done. Okay, so 3 ex-cons go wild. Their big job gets fucked up bad. No happy endings.
All right. That's pretty succinct.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta throw in a happy endings joke in there because, I mean, that whole scene is like, it's gross, but like, I don't know if it's Dafoe that makes it funny, or like if another actor in the same scenario could still have pulled that off being funny.
I don't think so. I think that was all him.
Yeah, most of the comedy, like now that I'm thinking of it, sort of does exist in his hands. And granted, like he is the like most insane character of the bunch, and he doesn't lean on the comedy in a way that you can sort of like anticipate the punchlines coming. It's just he's so weird and just like a naturally funny guy that in those moments, I think maybe just like the sick part of me is enjoying him being like a weirdo.
Yeah. There is one really funny Cage part that's very cagey is when he's walking across the street and he almost gets hit by the car. And he does the whole, like, he points at the car and he's like, and then he's like, he walks away and he's like, rah! Like he does some like weird, like Cage move. And you're just like, okay, there's his Cage. That's his Cage part.
They're fairly toned down for a lot of it. You think about the scene in the parking lot that sort of leads to the giant like firefight with the cops and the chase and all that. And he could have, I think, sort of very more casually like talked his way out of the situation if he weren't as bad of a criminal as it turns out that he is. And he ends up deciding to like assault the police officer rather than, oh, hey, can I get my jacket? Just tuck the gun and like let her look through the car and be done with it.
Right.
But instead, like it becomes an assault that then, precipitates the entire course of action that falls out of that. And yeah, it's it's like so close so many times to being like, oh, things are gonna probably like go okay. And then no, we're all morons. Like we can't sustain this. And honestly, one of my favorite scenes of the movie is where they rob the drug house, but they have spelled out police on the side of their like Crown Vic in duct tape, and it's
Yeah, and
crooked.
it's not even straight across. It's crooked. Yeah.
That's why
that's
I'm like,
great.
yeah, there is a very like dark sense of humor, I think, that permeates the entire film and makes it work for me in a way that I think if you do not have tolerance for that, probably will be off-putting to you
Mm-hmm.
because it does get as nasty as it does throughout a lot of the film. But
Well, and Defoe's character is like really not a good guy. Like, I mean, he uses the N-word a couple times in this
oh
movie.
yeah, he's horrible.
And you know, he's like, oh, let me take a few of them out. Like, he's just like, he just wants to kill people. Like, he's just like so unhinged all the time. And so yeah, it's like you know, we don't really feel much for these people. We're not really upset if they, although I will say, I mean, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but when they go to hide the body, that whole scene was very surprising. I did not see that coming. Did you?
No, I thought if anything, it was going to go, the other way around.
Right.
In that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of like keeping you, interested. There's not really a lot of downtime. There's some slower scenes, I guess, but for the most part, it's pretty action packed. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, but
yeah, I mean, I think it points back to this thing where it borders on tragedy, and I think even within the sort of confines of like the criminal world, it's like, hey, here's this group of friends, sort of, that because of their business and because of the sort of chaotic nature of their behavior, end up not only dying but killing one of the group of friends in that moment as well. So, I mean, like, if you can sympathize with them over anything, I think it's maybe that one thing, but it's hard to find sympathy for them in anything that they do. And that's why I think if I chalk it up to like, yeah, this is all sort of this big sort of bumbling buffoonery, but just presented as an action crime thriller, I'm like, okay, that sense of humor, I think, really, it feels more reflected, but also it could just be my interpretation. Like, if I don't look at this as it has a sense of humor, then I probably wouldn't be looking at it as something that I'm like, oh, this is actually like a solid, like, dark comedy version of this story. It's just like this like sad and fairly nasty movie throughout much of it.
Yeah, I think without the dark comedy giving levity, this would be a pretty hard movie to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's already dark enough to begin with, but go without that, I think it would be even more dark than at that point. I think.
Oh yeah,
it'd
absolutely.
Be kind of like, what is the point of watching this?
I mean, yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know that like I would voluntarily throw myself back into this anytime soon. But I think in looking at the career of Cage specifically through this like weird, career retrospective, looking at only the sort of worst movies that he's made, it still is an interesting entry because the time of his career that it happens and what he gets to do sort of before and after this film, because this is like this is a couple years before he comes back with Pig in, I think, 21, but it is kind of during the renaissance of him like working his way back from being like an internet meme type of actor, because he does Snowden right after this. He does USS Indianapolis. Within a year, he's doing Mom and Dad. He's doing Mandy, and the year after that. So it is it's like a rung on a ladder for him, and maybe that ladder is just a circle where he's constantly going around on the ladder for all time, and some of the movies are good and some of the movies are bad, but I feel like his performance in this is good. Like I said, for a guy who I don't think would have ever been sort of pegged as like the go-to guy for voiceover narration, he always delivers in that department and is compelling to listen to. And I'd be interested to see him narrate a movie sort of like Morgan Freeman has done, where he's like not necessarily in the movie, and like have him be the voice without being the face as well. I don't know if we ever get to that, but I think we've talked enough about why we would anticipate people not liking this movie. So we're going to jump over that and just go straight back into the trailer and take a look at how this movie was advertised back in 2016. Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick commercial from the multiverse. They say that crime doesn't pay, but pulling off that one big job is still a lot of work, and you can really work up an appetite in the process. I don't know about you, but when I get hungry, I lose focus and energy. That's why when I'm planning my next big heist, I head over to Ouroboros Hot Dogs. The dogs so tasty, they'd eat themselves if they could. Try their signature dogs. The Bogart, a Polish sausage in a French roll topped with beluga caviar, whiskey butter, and Pommery Royal cognac mustard. You'll feel like you're eating old Hollywood. Then there's the Diesel, a Louisiana hot link on a classic sesame seed bun topped with ground espresso, a kosher dill pickle, Engelhofer's spicy brown mustard, and Tabasco. It's the perfect pick-me-up when you're feeling down. Then there's my personal favorite, the Mad Dog, a traditional beer brat on a sourdough roll topped with fresh sauerkraut, sauteed onions, fresh jalapenos, and a little bit of Cleveland's finest, if you catch my drift. So whether you're in the planning stages of the one job that's going to change your life, or you just want that one last meal before you get locked up, head on down to Ouroboros Hot Dogs. This one's on me. And now, back to the show.
There was me, there was Diesel, and there was Mad Dog. We all did our piece at different times, and I was the last to come out. Once you were in, staying out is all but impossible. That's him.
Hey, bro, look at this. This ain't no cop car.
These chaps decided to throw me a welcome home party.
Even the music for the trailer makes it seem like it's a little funnier than it is.
Yeah.
You need to get us some real work, because this is no kind of life.
This take forever.
So what's the good?
Hey, Sky, it's got a 1-year-old out in the house. I need you to snatch him.
I don't know, man.
Kid's still a baby. He ain't never gonna know. If he was 4 or something, I'd never be doing that.
You wouldn't do that.
I love that line.
Big job for us, baby napping.
No, that don't sound so good.
It's not, and I'm not saying it is.
There's a gig and there's a lot of money at the end. Run away to Hawaii. It never works out.
I think it does sometimes. You just don't know about it, because they run off to Hawaii and you don't ever hear from them again.
It's that kind of
Absolutely
stuff.
no idea how to control your emotions.
Just take our money. We won't say anything.
We're gonna call the police the minute he gets away.
No, we are not.
I didn't want justice.
My God, the ketchup and mustard fight?
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck was
So
that?
good.
Just
It
wanted
was so
what
weird.
I wanted, just like everyone.
Oh, you guys are so fun.
Oh, you scared me.
Why? Am I scary?
He's so good.
He is.
Feel like you got problems?
Then I started thinking, once you've had money, you're never 100% sure who your friends are. We are not going to go down. It's got to be samurai style.
Jackie Chan.
Not a samurai.
Oh, so good. It's so good.
It's a good trailer, honestly. Like, I think it makes the movie seem more fun than...
Oh, the music for sure
Yeah,
puts it that way.
I think if you end up watching the trailer and you go into the movie, you're like, wait a second. I got swerved here a little bit by these guys.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Dafoe really is fantastic in this movie, and he might be the best part of it, which pains me to say because obviously we're talking about this movie because it's Nick Cage month, but
yeah,
this maybe is more of a vehicle for how good Willem Dafoe can be under the right circumstances. And maybe I got to do a whole Willem Dafoe month because he's got some
that'd be great.
He's got some really crazy movies as well. Do you want to do some trivia?
Sure.
Time for trivia. All right, let's see what we got. Well, you already popped the balloon on one of them.
Okay.
Because obviously Nick Cage and Willem Dafoe were in Wild at Heart. I incorrectly said that was 1993. That was 1990. So this movie was 26 years down the line.
Right.
But so you got 1 point already from the board. So question number 2 then. So this is the second film based on an Edward Bunker novel that Willem Dafoe has appeared in. What was the other one?
What was the other one? Trying to think, was he in Kings of New York? Maybe? No. I'm not sure.
The answer I'm looking for is Animal Factory from 2000.
Oh, wow. I did see that too.
Directed by Steve Buscemi.
I do remember that movie. I did see that. Yeah, it was good.
So I guess what ends up being the third question is, so this was Paul Schrader's acting debut, but he approached several others about playing the role of the Greek, ended up doing it himself for financial considerations. I'll give you a point for each person you can name that was approached about this role.
I looked these up.
Okay, well, you'll get a lot of points then.
Michael Douglas.
That's 1.
Martin Scorsese.
That's 2.
Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, that's 3.
God, there was another guy that I can't remember now. Was it Michael Madsen? No. No.
No, it was there is another Michael, but it is not Madsen.
Yeah, okay. I think that's it.
It was Michael Wincott.
Oh yeah, no, I never got that.
Also, Nick Nolte, Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum, Rupert Everett, and Abel Ferrara.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, that like any of those would have been interesting to have in that role. And I mean,
my first choice after, I thought Schrader did a great job, but I actually would have loved to have seen Abel Ferrara in that role. He's just such a good like bad guy. Do you see him in what's the movie he does? Oh, Marty Supreme, where he plays he's the guy who has the dog.
Oh, yeah. No, he is good in that.
Yeah, he's very good. He's a great bad guy.
Yeah, it would have been a fun choice. All right.
I mean, all of them would have been good, to be honest.
Yeah, Nick Nolte would have been a wild choice for that. Okay, so let's see. So speaking of budget stuff, Nick Cage actually paid $100,000 of his salary to Willem Dafoe to help persuade him to join the cast for this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Also, speaking of Cage, this is the third collaboration he's had with Schrader. The previous two were Bringing Out Dead, which I think Schrader wrote and Scorsese direct, and Dying of the Light in 2014. This is the seventh collaboration between Paul Schrader and Willem Dafoe, although I don't have all of those. I did not write them down. There was, I watched a bunch of sort of interviews from either Cannes or like red carpet festival stuff. And in one of them, Cage and Dafoe are being like interviewed together, like on a, like at a beachfront restaurant. And Cage said he actually wanted to play Troy because he wasn't at the place in his life to try Mad Dog. And so he was really happy that Willem Dafoe stepped into that role because I think that was the initial pitch to him. But you and I have also talked about that opening scene and it being the kind of like a moment that people might walk out on. And in one of those interviews, Paul Schrader says that it'll clear the wrong people out of the room. And he's not wrong. Like, if you can't handle that, then you probably can't handle the rest of the movie. So you might as well move on at that point.
Sure, yeah.
But you did end up getting 4 points total. So you'll have 4 spins of the bonus wheel.
All right.
All right, so let's see what you get off the board here. Oh, this is always a fun one around here. What snack would you pair with this movie?
Oh, man. Well, it's Cleveland, so I'd probably do something greasy, and I'd do some pierogies. I'd do chili cheese dog, and maybe some what else? Maybe some chili. Just straight chili.
Just a bowl of chili.
Bowl of chili.
All right, keep
bowl
you
of
warm
chili
at
and
least.
some Fritos. Yeah.
All right, so question 2 off the board. You have to sell this movie to a new watcher based on one scene from the movie. So what is the scene that makes the movie?
Oh, man. Jeez. I mean, honestly, probably the first scene, because I feel like if you don't like that first scene, you're not going to like this movie.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think stylistically, too, the way that scene is handled is one of the like nicer looking scenes in the movie. Granted, like, it's very violent and ends in a very unsatisfactory way, but yeah, that's going to be the one, I think. Either that, or I'd say the last one where Cage is in the car bogarting in the back seat and then gets into a gunfight with the cops in the pink smoke. I'm like, is any of this actually really happening, or is like this the fantasy of how he would go out because he's such a badass criminal that he would just stand there shooting it out with the cops? He gets those poor people killed. Yeah, it's probably the other one that I would point to.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 3. So what is an item, object, or piece of technology from this film that you would want to have for yourself?
Probably the shirt that Dafoe wears when they're talking about the plan. He's got like that weird like brown shirt with like yellow sleeves.
It's like his Charlie Brown polo shirt.
Yeah.
It's very 70s, yeah.
Yeah, it's very like 70s, 80s kind of feel to it. I'll probably go with that.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick. I would have said like, maybe like one of Cage's suits. Because there's not a lot to go around in terms of objects and tech in this movie. Okay, so last one off the board. This is tough. Well, we probably got to pick another one because they're all dead at the end, right? So, None
What
of
was
their
the question?
It was what is you get to pick a character and what would they be posting on social media the morning after the events of the film? But it would be somebody else posting their obituaries. So
Yeah,
we'll spin it one
no.
more time.
Okay.
And we'll see what we get here. Okay. So yeah, this is a fun one. You can choose up to 3 characters from this movie to start a podcast together. So who are they and what is the podcast about?
I'm gonna go. Uh, was his name the Greek or
Greek,
Greco
yeah.
or the Greek? I'm gonna go the Greek. I'm gonna go Cage, and I'm gonna go um Mad Dog, and it's gonna be about in a hypothetical world they're talking about ex like past jobs they've done, kind of like a tell all criminal like story kind of thing. I think that's what I would do.
It's fair. Like life after prison.
Yeah.
I could also see Mad Dog running like a Twitch or a YouTube account with like tips that he's picked up in prison, like how to make a shank and like how to make toilet wine,
Yeah,
that kind
I
of
could see that
thing.
too.
He's
I
got
just
the
want the
personality.
Greek in it though, because he's just so good in the movie. I really enjoy him in that role.
All right.
So I'd want to get him in it somehow.
Yeah. Sometimes less is more. And so speaking of which, it's time for more or less. Get that segue.
Sounds good.
Surgical precision. Just gonna tell me one thing that you want more of from the movie and one thing that you want less of.
I want more Cage. More Cage being, a bad guy. I feel like he's pretty normal in this for the most part. There's some scenes where he
Yeah.
gets a little weird, but I'd like a little bit more. I'd like him to match Dafoe a little more in this movie. And less of. mm, I don't know. I there's not a lot. There's not a lot that I didn't like. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think. Let me think. Maybe less. No, I can't really think of anything. I pretty not that it's a perfect movie, but there wasn't really much I would probably take out of it.
I mean, it's only an hour and 33 minutes too, so you can't really you can't strip out that
It's
much.
it's pretty tight. It's a pretty tight movie, I think. Not a ton that I would try and take out of this. So, hmm. I'll think if I think of something, I'll bring it up. But you can go.
I think my answer is the same for both in that I'm either gonna need more Bogart or less. Like I need full Bogart all the time
Right? Yeah.
or none at all. Because I don't know why he's doing the impersonation at the end, but like there is this weird fascination earlier in the film where he's like, "Do you think I look like Humphrey Bogart?" And he's getting into this whole thing, and so he kind of clearly like fancies himself as such. And I mean, would it have been that weird in the movie if Cage is talking like that the whole time? Like,
No, I don't think
yeah,
so.
I probably would have gotten used to it. I mean, it would have been a little jarring at first, but it's jarring at the end because it hasn't happened the whole time. So, yeah, I I think either give me all Bogart or no Bogart. But yeah, him like sort of existing as a person that like maybe thinks he is Humphrey Bogart, I think is a very interesting like character twist for that guy. So yeah, I could do that.
Um, I think I think I have an answer. I would probably
Okay.
do less racism in this movie. It doesn't seem necessary. There's like no context behind it. It's just kind of like Dafoe just like saying random things, or it's like, okay, you're clearly racist in this movie. So
It could be a thing where as you get to sort of spend more time with the characters, you're kind of like naturally being part of their friend circle. And so it comes at a time where it's like a reminder that these guys are bad guys and that they're
sure, I
doing
get it.
bad things for bad reasons. But yeah, understandable. The solid choice. Okay. Let's go to Critics Corner.
All right. Ding ding ding.
Ring that bell. We will.
You know what's funny is as I do this podcast, I literally hear all the like little things that you do in the movie. It's pretty funny.
Good. That means all of the things that I do on the show in terms of putting time and effort into the sound effects has paid off.
Oh yeah, I love all the sound effects you do.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the big board. We have a 53 Metascore overall with a low of 38, but we've got two 38s on the board. We've got Movie Nation and Slant Magazine. So you get to choose who we're going to hear from.
Let's do Slant.
Slant. This is Jesse Cataldo. Says Paul Schrader's film scrambles for contemporary relevance and finds only nihilistic hollowness.
Okay.
It's interesting given that Schrader said that they modernized the film and brought it out of the 1990s in order to make it more 2010s relevant. And maybe his vision of the 2010s is nihilistic.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. We've got a 40 and a 42. I don't want to read both of them, so let's just go with the 42. This is the playlist. Jessica Kang says, even with Schrader's own back catalog, Dog Eat Dog feels like a lukewarm retread of elements he has achieved as a writer and director much better before. It's just that here they're mashed together gracelessly with a kind of bullying undercurrent, as though designed to get a rise out of you, just so it can deliver two for flinching.
Okay.
I don't think that's unfair.
No.
I think at this point in his career, Schrader on those red carpets is acknowledging that, like, yeah, this is really like meant to be sort of like a fun, nasty movie, and he's not really trying to achieve more than that. So I think if the intent were to make like an artistic commentary on like denialism in society of the 2010s, you know, that's a different thing than like, hey, let's just make these characters like the nastiest, shittiest versions of people we can and have some fun with it. Okay, so we got two 50s on the board. This is Screen Daily and We Got This Covered. So again, you get to pick.
Screen Daily.
Okay, Jonathan Romney says, one thing that can be said about brazen crime comedy Dog Eat Dog is that it's a full-blooded venture in every respect, with Schrader and his leads, Cage and Dafoe, clearly enjoying the gore-soaked frenzy. But the film also feels like a too familiar reheating of in-your-face Tarantino-style crime tropes.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, I think that Tarantino probably was influenced by Schrader. Definitely influenced by Taxi Driver, so I don't think that that's that far off.
Talk about like a snake eating its own tail, right? Totally full circle.
Exactly.
All right. Well, climbing the board once again, we got a lot of double scores on here, including the last two rungs of the ladder. We've got Film Stage and the AV Club both in with 67s. So who do you want to hear from?
AV Club. I always like them.
Ignati Vishnevetsky. Got it.
Okay.
67. An exercise in gratuitousness that's fistful by design, Paul Schrader's Dog Eat Dog avoids any relationship between character psychology and visual style. They jab against each other, angrily vying for attention, as a nihilistic commentary on crime movies and genre stories. It's an interesting take given what we heard from that other reviewer. And, if it really is sort of looking at the entire genre, that's why I was asking about the sort of like the dark comedy nature of it and comparing it to a lot of other of the crime thrillers that we've seen that are fairly contemporary. If it really is like this is his vehicle for like his hatred of those movies, then it makes sense.
Yeah, I could see it, I guess.
Okay, we've got The Hollywood Reporter and The Guardian both in with 80s at the top of the board. Who do you want to hear from?
Let's do The Guardian.
Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian says it's terrifically watchable. A high-octane automobile of a film with dodgy steering, but exciting in a world of dull and prissy hybrids.
Not sure what the rest of the last sentence means. What is he trying to say? Other movies or?
Well, yeah, I would think he's comparing it to other movies of like the crime genre ilk. Interesting. So I mean, when you say like this movie's high octane with bad steering, and that's the fun.
That
part
sounds
of
like
it.
a car crash.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you might run yourself off the road at any given moment here, but it's more exciting than
it's worth the ride.
Priuses. Yeah. It's interesting.
All
okay.
right.
All right, Peter. Way to close us out with an 80. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the gateway drug movie. I need to know what movie you're recommending for people who have not seen Dog Eat Dog that might be a good starter course to get them to push play on this movie.
The problem is everything I have that I'd want to pair with this is crazier than this movie, so I'm not sure. I probably would start with this movie and end with any of the other choices, but I would pair this with Wild at Heart because I think it's a good entry into Cage and Dafoe, and it's a crime movie, and so I think I think I would go with that.
I mean, that's a good choice, obviously.
I would also potentially pair it with another crazy Cage movie, which would be Bad Lieutenant, Port of Orleans.
Yeah, if you want to see Cage doing a little bit more of the crazier side of the equation, then that's the one that you're gonna choose.
If you wanted to go funny, I would recommend Racing Arizona. He also kidnaps a baby in that movie.
There you go.
So I'll give you a trilogy.
He's done it all before. I'm tempted to say Good Time.
Oh, dude, I cannot believe you said Good Time. That was actually my first choice, but then I changed it because I wanted to do all Cage choices.
That is,
that's Good
fair.
Time is a great choice, I think.
Yeah, I think including some of like the color paletting of the film, you have a guy at the center of it who is not a good character, who you sort of are watching, not necessarily spiral, but sort of careen towards an end that is not going to be fun. And along the way, you do run into these like zany side characters. The score in that movie is a lot better than the score in this one, and does a lot of this. Like, I feel like I was having a panic attack when I watched that movie.
Oh, dude.
And so I feel like this Dog Eat Dog didn't give me a panic attack, but
no.
In terms of, I think, the sort of gritty, grungy style, it's a solid one. And granted, that's like maybe not their most popular movie now, obviously, but a decent enough choice. Probably more widely seen than Dog Eat Dog, in fairness.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. No, I got to rewatch that one again because as
So
much as I
good.
was like, yeah, Marty Supreme is good, but I still was like, I don't know. I feel like I like Good Time and Uncut Gems both better than Marty Supreme. So,
Oh yeah, they're
to
great
me,
movies,
yeah.
but I actually I loved Marty Supreme. It was one of my favorite movies of the year, but I do think that if they had shaved the time down and shaved out some of the story, I think it could have been a great movie. I just think there was a little bit too much going on,
Perhaps.
in my opinion.
You see that?
Yep.
I still got that for you. It's gonna come. I gotta order some other stuff, and I'm just gonna send everything in a box to you at once rather than mailing you a ping pong ball by itself.
Yeah.
But I do have it. It's
Okay.
right here on my desk.
I believe you.
I just showed it, so you better.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to plug while you're here? If anything.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately, for those who don't know, me and Nix are no longer doing Cinema Shitshow together. Nix is going to continue to use the name, which I fully endorse, and he will do a little bit different, setup than what we were doing. But yeah, I have a couple of options right now. I definitely will be doing another podcast at some point, but as of right now, I'm just going to try and guest on as many friends' podcasts as I can because I do miss doing it. But yeah, as of right now, I'm not currently doing a permanent podcast yet. So,
do you have other guest spots lined up that we should be aware of?
I definitely going to be going on seeing faces in movies again at some point. I think I've talked to Movie Miss about getting back on her or getting on hers. I am gonna guest with Nick's at some point on his. So yeah, I got some stuff lined up, but I'm just gonna take it one day at a time, and I'll find the right match. So I'm not stressed about it.
All right. Well,
But
I
yeah,
wish you the best of luck in your
thank you.
future endeavors. Do you have any closing thoughts that you want to take us home with on Dog Eat Dog?
I think my only real complaint about this movie is I wish that Diesel would have been a bigger name. I think that like he was too much of a solid person. Like he was like, the most normal, I guess you could say. Um, but I would have liked possibly like a more menacing character. Um, somebody who's like a little bit more intimidating. Maybe the quiet, strong type was what he was looking for, but I would have preferred somebody a little more menacing, a little more bad. But that's about it.
That's fair. I mean, I actually liked him in the movie. I felt like that character had the most potential upside given
Yeah.
who he's hanging out with. Like
Right.
there was maybe hope for this person to like break from the pack and
Hmm.
not meet that same fate, but yeah, I could see what you're saying though about having a larger like physical actor in
Hmm.
that role. Like if you're gonna name a guy Diesel, like bring in a 7-footer. Go get
Who's the
the
guy?
mountain.
Yeah. Who's the guy, the English guy who usually plays bad guys in like English movies, English crime movies? He's got like really intense eyebrows. He did like a
Thinking of
soccer movie one time.
Vinnie Jones.
Yes, Vinny Jones. I feel like somebody like him would have been a fun
he would have
option.
been. I think he's too British for this movie though.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. But
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I'm saying. Somebody like him, somebody that's like, you know, kind of little scarier.
Yeah, and coming from like Snatch and Lock, Stock and The Gentleman, like he's done the crime story stuff. Plenty of times. Yeah, he would have been fun. He would have been fun.
All right, I think that's about it then.
Cool. Well, this has been fun, man. Good to see you again.
Always, yeah. Sounds good.
And then who knows when the next Cage month rolls around, might come calling again because, you know, even with the 2 months, that's only like 8 or 9 total movies that I'm going to talk about. So only
he's got a lot.
20 more to go.
He's got a lot of movies that qualify for this show, so
he does.
You will never have a problem finding that. So.
I know. I had trouble cramming all of the ones that I suggested onto one graphic because there was so many. I was like, I'm going to need multiple slides here, but yeah, still got a couple left in the month. So it's going to be a jam-packed rest of April. So stay tuned, people.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks to Ben for coming back on the show and for sharing his love of Nick Cage with us and potentially lighting the fuse on a future Willem Dafoe month here at Bad Movies We Love. While Ben is not doing Cinema Shitshow anymore, he's still online, and I'll make sure that his Instagram, his Twitter, and his Letterboxd are easily available for you in the show notes if you want to reach out to him. While you're checking out the show notes, make sure to check out the rest of the Shiest Podcast Network, which includes other great shows like Hers, His, and Ours, which I do with my wife, X-Friends, an X-Men show, the original Shiest Podcast, Kunked, taking a look at the work of Philomena Kunk, and the new Film Wars Podcast, which is a draft and debate podcast here at the network, hosted by our friend Donald Langley. And in the show notes, you will also find the listener survey where you can give me a piece of your mind, and it's completely anonymous. I also want to give a quick shout out to our contributing members, Kristen, Sharon, Ben, Sean, Josie, Donnie, Nathan, and Melissa. Your contributions help the show to keep running smoothly, and you've got some members' exclusive gifts coming your way. If you're interested in supporting the show by becoming a member, make sure to check the show notes and click where it says support the show. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to not just this episode, but the entire show. The podcast options are plentiful, so the fact that you took the time to listen to this show and to trust me with that time means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. So until next time, be good, do good, watch movies, and have fun. Take care, everybody.